Hey, Welcome World Entertainment, and Predator Badlands, it's on its way. And what should we expect from it? What can we expect from this new version of a Predator that's meant to be the protagonist of this? Well, Dan Trachtenberg has been giving details now about developing a language for the Predator, as well as the effects that are going to be used in the Predator. Now, I wonder if he touches in this article that we're going to look at on something that I've heard from other streamers and other places, which is potentially bad news for the face of a Predator. But let's have a look anyway at what this new detail is, because it's quite actually long what he says, so we'll dive into this. So prior to the official announcement of Predator, Killer of Killers, film journalists had been invited to a preview event to view the trailer and interview writer-director Dan Trachtenberg. Naturally, they also took the opportunity to ask Dan about the upcoming live-action Predator, Predator Badlands, at the same event, and he spilled some beans about what we can expect. So, the earliest official details about Predator Badlands was that the film would feature a predator as one of the protagonists of the story. This presented a problem for Dan Trachtenberg and the production in regard to developing the predator culture further and how they communicate. So here is what he says here. Now again, this is a bit lengthy what he says, but that's one of the cool things of the movie, is that outside of very brief glimpses of other films, you're on Yautja Prime. What is known as Yautja Prime, mainly from extended universe stuff. There's a lot in this movie that is more from the extended universe than is from things that are properly in the movies. I should mention the language. We insanely decided to really treat that properly and worked with. We reached out to the guy who does the Na'vi language in Avatar, who was very occupied, and recommended his mentee. We did it the way that for the Lord of the Rings you would do Elvish. For Game of Thrones you do Dothraki. Except for those, there's more president. For us, there's very little. As we discovered, with him being a language expert, all that stuff, and frankly actually working with Predator special effects artist Alec Gills, all the stuff that you've seen in other Predator movies is complete garbage. There's no sense of it. People from the internet have tried to make sense of it, but none of it was made with intention. So we decided to make it with intention, and we completely developed the language. So everything they're speaking has actual rules and structure and all that stuff. Just before I go on with this, actually, I think that's a bit disrespectful from Dan Trachtenberg to say everything you've seen with the Predators in the other movie regarding language, i.e. the number type symbols and stuff, he flat out is saying that's all garbage. To say, sit down now and go, we are the ones now who have fully developed the language. I think that's a bit disrespectful to the others. He could have just said the others didn't really have a language, we focused on a language. To say it's all garbage what's in the other movies, I think that's a bit out of order. But anyway, this continues saying, and written as well as verbal. Very early on, we just did explorations, concept art, explorations of what Yautja could be. I wanted to be very careful in making this, that I not fall into a trap that is making something that is more lore focused than story focused. I think lots of times when people do more in a franchise, there's a tendency to really go whole hog into the Senate trading committees and whatever. Now he's taking shots at Star Wars. I just thought we should have a little sliver of that, but not let the movie be like there could be some expectation when people hear the premise that the movie is going to be all about the inner workings of the Yautja culture, and that's not. We wanted to still make it feel genre, feel very specific. Really, what it is, it's an inversion of the premise of now the Predator is on a planet. He's going to be hunted by things and has to use his glue to figure out stuff. Well, we were doing concept art and things like that to figure out the world building of it all. So again, this is only the first part of what he says. We're going to hear a bit more now in a second. But again, I think that's a bit mad that he's like sitting there going, we're going to go into this culture. We're going to make a language specific for these things. But we're not going to do it in a way that goes too deep into a lore and sets the focus on the inner workings of the Yautja. However, everything that you've seen in other movies that were literally slithers of information and glimpses of their world and their culture, he is now saying is total crap. And then he's even taking shots at Star Wars by saying, oh, if you go too far into it, you go into the Galactic Senate and stuff like that. That's a bit ego-driven statements right there, to be honest with you. You know, like, okay, Prey was well received, but it's not universally loved. There are still a lot of people who hate that movie. I like it. I hate the ending. It's very similar to Alien Romulus. I like that as well, but hate the ending because the endings were stupid and shit the bed. Prey was no different. And to start kind of talking this big talk, it's like you had one hit on Hulu. This is going to be your big test with the Predator franchise, because if he drops this on the big screen and it fails, well then what's he do? So let's continue anyway with what he's saying here. So Dan Trachtenberg also went on to discuss our upcoming Predator hero, who goes by the name Derek, or Deke. It's either Deke or Derek. I think it's Deke. Confirming that the man inside Studio Guild's suit wasn't the return performer, but a new performer. So he's saying here, let me tell you, this guy, Demetrius, oh Jesus, I'm not even trying to pronounce his second name. We had a very specific casting for Deke. We thought we would want a stunt guy, and this was a real opportunity because all the other Predators need to be like 7'6". It's very specific people that aren't often trained stuntmen. They happen to be that size and they decide to get into the business. Prey star Danny DeLago did want to be in the business, but he also was an ex-basketball player. He was the one who played the feral in Prey. Here, it was the first time I was like, oh, we can get a proper stunt guy to be the guy who can move in the ways. And at one of our castings, we had a number of stunt guys, and then this dude, Demetrius, came up, and the way he moved just had a great swashbuckle to it. What a weird statement. He was just so cool. We set up a little physical obstacle course. That's how we cast him. Then he did some dramatic stuff from the movie, and it was awesome. I was not at all prepared for what he actually does. It's so... I could not believe... By the way, there's a lot of half-said phrases here. That's why this is sounding a bit choppy, is because he just kind of starts saying his sentence and then stops. So like where he's saying there, I wasn't prepared for what he actually does. It's so... He stops and then he continues with a new sentence, which is, I could not believe, how did we look into this guy? That's look as in you're lucky. Not look as in L-O-O-K. So whatever statement that is he's making, saying, continuing anyway, it's crazy that we found him. Then he gave so much to the movie and learned the language, and I mean, that language is, not everyone can do it. I can't do it. I can't even pretend. You have to make a whatever click sound in the back, and he can just do it. He would learn it that morning if we changed lines or whatever, and it was incredible. That's weird. So you're basically talking a made-up language and you're saying, if we change lines, why would you change lines? It's like you're literally making a sound. It's weird. So it's saying, though Predator Badlands does continue the tradition of featuring a performer inside Predator's suit, it steps away from that convention like Prey did with the Predator's face. Oh, so they are going to bring this up. Being a digital effect. Speaking at the event, Dan Trachtenberg confirmed that Weta Workshop was taking over the duties of bringing Deke's face to life in Predator Badlands. Now, before we read what he says here, this is an issue people have, is the fact that it's not going to be a practical face. It's going to be digital. So when the mask is on, we're assuming it's a mask, an actual mask. But when the mask comes off to reveal the actual predator's face, it's not a mechanical mask or anything like that. It's not practical effects. It will be CGI. That's an issue because they did use a practical mask for Prey, but they did enhance it with CGI, which made it look a little cheap and a little too digital. Now the fact that the entire face will be fully digital, that's a problem. But here's what Trachtenberg said about this. So he said, "We did a very new thing with this creature. The thing that's been special about Predator is that it's had practical suit effects. It's one of the first big pioneers of that art. All the movies have featured that craft. The problem is that when we did some early tests for this movie, we realized the obvious thing is that it's typically a horror character. It pops out of the shadows for a few seconds and we see glimpses and it's cloaked for so often. This movie, you really wanted people to connect with Deke." I hate by the way, that I do hate that they've called this thing Deke. If it's called Deke in the movie, like I don't mind if this is just what they called it, like shooting the movie, but if it's actually called Deke in the movie, if they've given this thing a name, that's stupid in my opinion. He's saying anyway, unfortunately, the rotors that go inside the mask that is usually adorned for the predator not only affects all the physicality of the creature, so it makes people move a certain way, but also it just does not have the articulation to bring people in and connect to a creature. We were trying to do this thing off, we want you to bond with a horrific looking creature. The methodology was a guy in a suit, and you're seeing suit, the whole thing, other than his face. The face is all digital, largely handled by Weta Workshop. The thing I should have mentioned that I think is very cool about how we're treating the faces, the CG is so that we express this in Prey, where we had some scenes we would augment a lot, the director clarified. There was a lot of handover between the practical and digital, like in his hands and picking up things and things you would never notice. Some things, unfortunately, were a little bit noticeable. A lot of that, it was when we went to a face occasionally and it became a creature face. The cool of what we're doing, where it's digital, it's meant to match the suit. So it's not matching creature flesh, it's matching the suit, which has a look to it, which Weta makes amazingly and should feel like an alien creature. But it's still a little different than like when you see a full CG golem or an alien creature in any cool Alien. It's that flesh is different than suit. And so the face perfectly blends in and is matching that suit quality. So hopefully it looks like real material. You see what I mean there now, where he even admits that, yeah, we tried it in Prey and unfortunately some of it was very noticeable. No, the entire facial expressions on the thing was pretty noticeable. That is the issue. And if this is going to be fully that way, and from what he's saying here, it sounds like we're going to be basically looking at a Predator without cloaking and stuff for the majority of this movie, possibly even without the standard mask. So that could be a bit weird. It's also saying here, the writer-director also went on to discuss how Predator performer Demetrius, whatever, was involved in the facial performances of Deke as well. So he's obviously just talking about his eyebrow movements and all that. So obviously they put the dots on his face. Either way, it's an interesting statement he's making that, oh, we've done all digital and stuff, but we've also come up with this language. But then to shit all over the original movies and all the other movies and basically say, oh, you know, you can't go too deep. And any language you saw in those movies, it was all crap. This is the real language. It's like, really, dude? Like, if it wasn't for those movies and the symbols and stuff, you wouldn't even know where to begin. So again, it's an interesting statement. I'm curious as to when we're actually going to see the trailer. Now that the animated one is out, I would assume it'll probably be next month. at some stage. Maybe. We'll wait and see. But there you go. There's the new details for what we can expect, at least regarding what the predators will look like and how they operate in this Predator Badlands. So with that, I shall leave it there for this one. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.